Hi, we are so excited to introduce Mason, who is the CEO of CC Veggies Co. Mason is a serial entrepreneur with fresh foods, organic, and sustainability at his core. Like we just mentioned, his latest venture is CC's Veggies, which was founded in 2015, which is a huge pioneer in the market. So we're very, very excited to welcome him in. And Mason, we're so happy to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So my first question for you is I'm really interested to know more about your product, what makes it different, and why you decided to bring it to life.
Yeah, sure. So my last company was called Greenlang, and it was a grocery home delivery company. So I was following consumer trends pretty closely, and I got pretty good at guessing which brands were going to make it and which ones weren't. So I love branding. And along the way, myself and my kids had to go gluten free. And I didn't want them to miss out on cookies and cake and spaghetti and meatballs. So I was constantly looking for alternatives. And I didn't think anyone did a great job of a pasta alternative. And I'd had a veggie noodle a few years prior, and I just wondered if it could be a trend and a product in the market. And so I spent about 6 months researching. I leaned on my engineering background, and I actually invented the machine that we still use today to make the noodles. And it makes it it's subtle differences, but very important differences in the other machines out there that make the noodles. And so 6 months designing that and studying what people wanted out of a vegetable noodle, and then hit the ground running in Whole Foods in 2015.
Oh, wow, that's exciting. So you mentioned that machine. I would love to hear more about that because it's not very often you hear a founder create this amazing nutritional product, but then they also invented the machine. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, as an engineer, I love to tinker with things. And when I was thinking about starting this company, I bought all the machines out there that make them. And some of them made a fairly decent quality noodle, but they made them really slowly. And others could make noodles quickly, but they were just really poor quality. And so that's what ended up in the market. Our competitors do the ones that make a poor quality noodle very quickly. And so I started tinkering around in my kitchen, deconstructed, like drills to get the motors out of it, and had a machine shop, create some parts. And so it was a really fun process just to kind of tinker and put something together. And the first version of the machine was just this huge, we called it Big Bertha because we're using parts that we could find. And then over time, we've refined it, and we're on our version number 6 of the machine at this point. And it's been a really fun journey with that. And it's
Okay.
patented. Mhm.
Yeah, that was my next question. Is it patented and do other companies use that machine?
So we don't let anyone else use it because we know it makes the best noodle in the market. And yes, it's patented. And we've got I think 4 other patents in the works for machinery around making vegetable noodles. No one had ever done it before. And so all the machinery, like pasta machinery, didn't work very well because the vegetables are wet and more sensitive than pasta. And then vegetable processing machines didn't really work because the noodles are long and get gunked up in all kinds of areas. And so we've had to invent a lot of other things as well to automate making vegetable noodles.
Wow, cool. So there's the machine and the product there, which
That's
is
right.
awesome. You touched a little bit on that product, that problem you found in the market, but I'd love to dive in there, especially with your personal experience with that problem of kind of where it solves and what it fits in for your product.
Yeah. So, what we were really solving for, there are 2 main things. One is that pasta is a high calorie, high carb product, and that certainly has fallen out of favor in consumers. So, finding a low carb, low calorie pasta is one problem in and of itself. But then also, allergen diets, and it's up to, I think it's 20 million people say they're either sensitive to gluten or straight up allergic to it. And so the allergen market is really growing. And so we kind of combine that. And then the last kind of problem is just like people wanting to get more vegetables into their diet. and especially for me with my kids, we're making all the early versions in the kitchen. And Cece, she was an early product tester, and she's my daughter and the namesake of the company. And she'd hop up on the counter and she would eat the noodles just as they were coming out of the machine. And I was like, I think we're really onto something if the kids will eat these right out of the machine.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, they say what you have to introduce a new food like 15 to 20 times to children. So that's like a huge, huge win. So
Yeah.
they're child approved, gluten free, and they solve both those markets. And so is that kind of why you picked it? Was it because you saw this giant need, or like from a sustainability route and the machinery route? Just is that kind of where you went for it?
I think it was solving the need. The underlying drive was that we wanted a better gluten-free pasta for my family. And so, and I was like, if I like it and the kids like it, then I think a lot of other people hopefully are going to like it.
Yeah. And then, so what are your most popular vegetables that you guys use for your noodles?
So zucchini by far is the most popular. And I think a big part of that is because of the low carb, low calorie. You know, a standard serving of pasta has like 220 calories and I think 20 or 30 something grams of carbs. The same thing for zucchini noodles is 11 calories and 2 grams of carbs. So dramatically lower calorie, lower carb. And also I think it's popular because it's a green vegetable. And so people just seem to be able to connect with it more. My favorite is butternut, which is our number 2 SKU. Zucchini can be easy to overcook, and it's very watery, so it can change some formulas. Butternut is nice and sturdy, and it's got a great mild flavor to it, and it cooks up really well also.
Yeah, I personally, the butternut's my favorite. I love you guys just like on the side note. That's really cool. And
Awesome.
then I know you have some other products that aren't just noodles. So could you talk about those or where you guys are heading innovation wise from now?
Yeah. So, we started out with just noodles, and did that for almost 3 years. And then our customers kept asking us for cauliflower rice. And so
Mhm.
we finally were like, okay, let's figure out how to do this cauliflower rice thing. And then we started and everything, because we built a facility in 2017, purpose built for, making noodles. And then we added the rice to it. But every new innovation we did, we had to be really careful because it's not pasteurized. There's nothing in the product. So food safety is a huge concern. And so we just started slowly dipping our toes into innovation. And we did like a zucchini marinara, and a couple of other inclusions, and like a stir fry. So we started mixing ingredients together, making sure that was okay. And then we've moved more towards convenience is where it's going. And so we created like some mac and cheese SKUs that we just launched, and we launched a buffalo cauliflower product as well. And so we're moving more and more towards the convenient side of things and having everything you need for a meal in there. And coming out next year, we'll be launching a line of functional food meals. So, things like cordyceps and lion's mane mushrooms in the sauce, and probiotic turmeric sauce as well for immunity boosting. And we're really excited about that line coming out.
Yeah, that's going to be amazing, kind of that more functional food space.
Yeah.
Cool. And then, I have to ask, like with everything going on, 2020 has been a year no one could have predicted. How has that been for CC's? Like, where have you guys pivoted or innovated? Anything kind of thoughts on 2020?
Yeah, it's for us has been kind of a mixed bag. Grocery is across the board, but produce is not up proportional to that because of the shorter shelf life. People are grocery store and a higher basket value per trip, but they don't buy extra short shelf life products because they know it won't last. So and initially in the panic buying, I mean, things were going crazy, and we had retailers drop us because they were like, we don't have enough people in the warehouse to deliver to the stores, and people are buying potatoes and onions. They're not buying salad greens and veggie noodles. So we took an initial pretty hard hit and then slowly kind of come back from that. And really the most disruptive thing for us was around supply chain. And so some products we've struggled to get. And just recently is the first time ever that we couldn't get enough zucchini. And that was primarily due to the combination of the fires in California and then the hurricanes on the East Coast flooding things. And so we just couldn't get zucchini for the first time ever. Not necessarily pandemic related, but 2020.
Yeah, definitely 2020 related. And then like from that sustainability piece, how important is seasonality kind of to your business with that supply chain?
Yeah, I mean it's critical because we're working with fresh product. The fresher it is, the better. And so our goal is to process zucchini that's 5 days out of the field. That's and we
Yeah.
make all orders to order. So we'll have trucks parked against the facility and we're making the noodles and just loading the truck up as we're making it until that order is in full and that truck goes away. So really quick turnaround. Sustainability, is key to everything that I do. We're a zero food waste facility. The lowest use of the product is compost piles, but we also feed a whole lot of pigs in Central Texas with it. And then we've slowly been finding customers to incorporate it into under other things like smoothies and baby food and like Kettle and Fire. So we're making sure that we put every piece of that vegetable to use.
Awesome. And so was that something like from the very beginning, you're like, okay, we're going to have this fresh product. How do we stretch it as far as possible? Because that sounds like a lot of, I'd love to dig into some of those initiatives you just talked about, because I feel like that's so unique to your business.
Yeah, it is unique, and it wasn't something that initially I even realized was going to be such an issue. But then because we grew just super fast, we hit market timing really well. People didn't even know they needed this product, and then they saw it and were like, I have to have it. And so as we grew, all of a sudden everything was going to compost, but we were like, this is several container loads a week. It was like, we got to figure out something better. Like, sure, feeding the pigs is great, but this is, clean, fresh, organic food. Like it should be in human mouths first.
That's so cool. And I love like how you talked about like going into baby food and smoothies, like just thinking so beyond like what a vegetable can be.
Yeah. And we had a lot of fun playing around with the different forms of the vegetable. So you end up with this kind of hockey puck piece at the end, but then you have all these shreds that aren't good enough to be noodles. So you got kind of different forms. So we bought puree machines and we played with HPP. So we'd send it to a lab in Houston that would play with different, preservation techniques, and we'd freeze it. So it's been fun to just kind of figure out, what do you do with vegetable scraps and how do you get it into a form that people can still eat it.
Yeah. And I love, so you said everything's so fresh. What is the shelf life for the product since you guys don't use any preservatives or anything like that?
Yeah, so it's about 2 weeks right now. When we launched, it was 10 days. And then after a couple of years, we were able to get it to 12 days. And then we built the new facility and quickly moved to 14. And now we're at 16. And our goal is to just keep plugging away at that hours and hours at a time, extending the shelf life. And like most of our cauliflower actually probably lasts 20 to 22 days, but we give the rest of those days to the consumer so that it stays good in their fridge.
Okay, awesome. And then recipe development obviously has to be a huge part of what you guys do to keep the consumer inspired. What do you guys do on that front to kind of make sure these new recipes and ideas are getting in front of your consumer?
Yeah, so we try to have a strong digital presence, and we work with influencers, and we actually collaborate with some of them on what they're cooking and what they're seeing in the market. And we also have this year we started doing some food service, so we deliver products to Sweet Green and some other restaurants, and so then we're able to collaborate with them as well, and they tell us what they're putting it in, what's selling well at their restaurant, and we include that kind of in our product development process.
Awesome. So it sounds like you really diversified, like you're not just straight to the retail stores, you've got all these different avenues to consume the product.
Yeah, the only thing, and we're actually about to launch with a partner direct to consumer, which I thought would never work for this product because it has to stay cold. And so, shipping it overnight, my prior company was home delivery. So I know that you have to sell $60 worth of product just to pay for the shipping. And, the noodles are $5 per container. So that's a lot of noodles to get delivered with a short shelf life. But this partner has developed some insane logistics network of warehouses and direct to store and direct to residential avenues. And so we'll be launching that in the coming month or two as well.
Okay, awesome. We'll definitely have to. Everyone, what's your Instagram handle so we can like stay up to date with you guys?
It's just at CC's Veggie Co.
Okay, everyone hear that? Go follow us. You can get noodles delivered directly to your door.
That's right.
That's so exciting because like who knows where shopping's going to go in the next year. I don't think we could have predicted this far.
Yeah.
So going off that, I want everyone who's here to be able to find you guys in every possible place. So could you kind of tell us where they can find you and the best ways to, I know they're going to want to go buy some noodles right when they get off this call for Friday dinner.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. We'd appreciate the support. In Austin and pretty much in Texas, it's every major retailer, H-E-B, Central Market, Whole Foods, Sprouts, Wheatsville Co-op, pretty much any grocery store in Texas, we're carried there. And then nationally, we're in Sprouts nationwide, Whole Foods nationwide, and then a slew, probably I think it's 60 or 70 other small chains, depending on the region that you're in.
Okay, awesome. That's a lot of good places to get the veggies. What was your first retailer you ended up in? Do you remember?
Yeah, so it was Whole Foods, and my prior company, Greenling, we had some partnerships, so I already knew some of the people there, and I invited the regional buyer in the Southwest region here to lunch, and I'd pieced together a prototype. I didn't yet know how we were going to make it or where we were going to make it, and I showed it to her, and she was like, "I love it. When how quickly can you get me some?" And I was like, maybe give me a couple weeks because I don't actually know how I'm going to make it yet. We don't have boxes or anything. And so we launched in Whole Foods Lamar downtown. And I remember, I hadn't had a CPG company before. I'd had grocery, but it was a little bit different with delivery. So when they were saying that, we knew that they were selling about 150 units a week of the zucchini. And I was like, is that good? And she was like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I'm like, that's a weird response. It seems like I'm selling a lot of zucchini here. And I asked around and I called a couple of CPG people and I was like, yeah, we're selling 150 units a week of zucchini. And they were like, no, that's across all of your SKUs. What is just zucchini? I was like, no, that's just zucchini. And they're like, no, that must be, you mean a month, 150 a month. I'm like, no. 150 a week of zucchini. And they were like, holy shit. I'm like, okay, so that's good. Like, yeah. All right.
That sounds like a ton to me. Like, I was like, wow, a week? That's really cool though. So you went to this meeting and I just want to ask, like, dig into that. What was that feeling when you left? You're like, all right, I got something and now I just got to get it to them. Like, where was your brain going?
Yeah, it was a little bit more nerve-wracking than exciting because I was like, okay, I didn't expect her, I thought it was going to take months and months to get into any retailer. And she was like 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, now I really got to figure out how to do this.
Got to do it. We're going to dive into some Q&A now because I know everyone has some questions for you. So I'm going to read the first question is for CPG entrepreneurs wanting to really incorporate that sustainability piece. What is your advice?
My advice around that is that often it takes baby steps. So, know if you don't do something because you're waiting to make it perfect, then you're probably going to miss opportunities. So, we do the best we can, but our packaging is all virgin plastic, and I hate that. And we're, constantly researching ways to do it, but it's from a food safety perspective, that's the best option for us. And there, you know, you can get some, but it's really expensive. We go to the retailers, be like, are you willing to pay more for sustainable packaging? And none of them are. And so we know that that will come around. But for the meantime, you know, supporting organic farmers, zero food waste, we do what we can. So my advice is do what you can and just keep in mind the things that you want to do better at. And over time, hopefully you have the opportunity to do better at it.
Yeah, that's great advice. One baby step at a time.
Yeah.
Our next question is, can you share any up and coming like flavors or products or hint at what might be coming next?
Yeah, so mentioning that functional food line, we have a couple that are rice based. So we have a mixture of like cauliflower rice and broccoli rice, and I think even some butternut rice with some sauces. So we have like a golden turmeric with probiotic sauce and kind of a Buddha bowl type of dish. And we have a zoodle salad with a really awesome pesto that has those mushrooms in it, cordyceps and lion mane and reishi. And so we're really trying to pull out these flavors of these, you know, superfoods and extremely healthy vegetables.
Yay. Okay, next question. What do you think is the primary draw to your product? Bearing convenience. So like take that out. What's the next primary draw?
I think it's the primary draw is the carb replacement. I think that's what drives a lot of our business. And then second to that is allergens, people wanting to, you know, needing a gluten-free pasta.
And then how are you guys like with creating these more complex recipes? Is that like allergen friendly menu kind of keeping with that?
Yeah, so we do, you know, our best. When we launched like our mac and cheese product, we did a dairy cheese and we did a vegan cheese. And the dairy cheese just outsold the vegan enough that the retailers ended up dropping the vegan cheese. But when we're designing products, we start with the, you know, the cleanest ingredients and as vegan as we can get. And then if we feel like we need to add something for flavor profile, because we've got to make sure everything tastes good, then we'll occasionally add I think dairy, and then, you know, eggs. We had eggs coming through our facility for a ramen dish that we made. But other than that, you know, the 100% no is gluten or other grains, and then, you know, of course, like GMO and all that stuff never comes through.
Awesome. Okay, and then I think this is the last question we're gonna have time for. But what is your favorite veggie noodle recipe? Or rice.
Right. I really love the mac and cheese. Now I'm dairy free, so I buy the mac and cheese and then I get the like diet cheese sauce or Daiya cheese sauce and put that on it. And so it's cauliflower florets and it's just really delicious. My kids love it. We'll spice it up with other things, but we eat that one on a regular basis.
Okay, awesome. We have one more question. Have you thought of any new shapes for the veggie noodles?
Yeah, I'm constantly dreaming up new shapes. Actually, we have another patented machine that can turn them into shells, and we did like a shells and cheese, but the inconsistent width of it when it cooked, they all just kind of fell apart. So that one didn't quite work, but I'm constantly dreaming up new shapes and new ways to cut vegetables. It's a really fun part of my job.
Awesome. That's where the innovation gets to come in. Well, I think that's all the questions we have. And thank you so much for coming. One last time, where can we find you? And Marissa, we popped that Instagram handle in the chat so you guys can follow along for updates.
Yeah, so CiCi's is available in most major retailers nationwide. Look for us in Whole Foods, HEB, Sprouts, Wheatsville.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and getting to chat with us. I really enjoyed it. I know everyone else did too.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Mason. Thank you, Kate. Again, look to the chat for more information coming on throughout the day. Mason, have a great weekend, a full veggie-filled weekend.
Yeah, thank you. Y'all too.